Hello, welcome to this lecture where we'll be talking about Data Management Maturity Assessment, or DMMA. I am Linus, and today's topics will be an introduction. We will be looking at some essential concepts of a DMMA, the activities, tools, guidelines, and finally some maturity management governance about this topic. And finally, we will be looking at the sources, which is the Data Management Association Data Management Book of Knowledge, Chapter 15, about the maturity assessment. So, for introduction's sake, we will take a quick look at the data management knowledge areas as defined in the Data Management Book of Knowledge. These are the grounds for the different processes that can be assessed in the assessment. Different frameworks, as we will see, have different names, different concepts, but they can all be mapped to this model with data governance in the middle, because that's the connecting part, the part that connects all these other processes together to form a data management model. A capability maturity assessment, or a CMA, is a formalized way to evaluate the capability level of processes in an organization. A CMA is based on a capability maturity model, a CMM. It can also be called a framework. And CMMs were initially applied to software development, but have been developed for a range of other fields, including data management. Some essential concepts regarding capability maturity assessments are capability levels, where CMMs define progress through levels that describe process characteristics. With each new level, process execution becomes more consistent, predictable, and reliable. Progression happens in a set order. No level can be skipped. Some common capability levels, or the common capability levels, are level 0, which denotes an absence of capability. Level 1, called initial or ad hoc, where success depends on the competence of individuals. Level 2, repeatable, where minimum process discipline is in place. Level 3, defined, where standards are set and used. Level 4, managed, where processes are quantified and controlled. And Level 5, optimized, where process improvement goals are quantified. We will be taking a closer look at these levels further on in this lecture. A data management maturity assessment is a subset of capability maturity assessment focused on data management. It is a method for ranking practices for handling data within an organization to characterize the current state of data management and its impact on the organization. A DMMA can be used to evaluate data management on the organizational level, but also focus on a single knowledge area or even a single process. The first step is to establish a baseline of the organization's current state regarding capabilities, assets, goals, and priorities. This means that a certain level of organizational maturity is required before even starting a DMMA. Business drivers. Organizations conduct maturity assessments for a number of reasons. Regulation, data governance, organizational readiness for process improvement, organizational change, new technology, data management issues. Goals and principles of a DMMA. The primary goal of a DMMA is to evaluate the current state of data management activities in order to plan for improvement. It clarifies the strengths and weaknesses in the organization and helps with identifying, prioritizing, and implementing improvement opportunities. Positive impact on culture. A DMMA that meets its primary goal helps educate stakeholders about data management concepts, principles, and practices, clarify stakeholder roles and responsibilities in relation to organizational data, and highlight the need to manage data as a critical asset, broaden recognition of data management activities across the organization, and contribute to improving the collaboration necessary for effective data governance. We will now take a deeper look at the different capability levels, and this is a generic summary of the levels that commonly describe different process characteristics. A detailed assessment would handle subcategories such as strategy, policy, standards, role definitions, etc., within each of the knowledge areas. Level 0, no capacity, means that no organized data management practices exist in the organization. Now, very few organizations exist at this level. Level 1, initial ad hoc, examples of organizations at this level include where general purpose data management using a limited tool set. There's little or no governance. Organizations are highly reliant on a few experts. Roles and responsibilities are defined in silos. Data owners receive, generate, and send data autonomously. Controls are applied inconsistently if they exist at all. Limited solutions for data management, and data quality issues are pervasive but not addressed. Level 2, repeatable. Here we see an emergence of consistent tools and role definitions. Centralized tools are being implemented. More oversight for data management is provided. Processes are not dependent on specific experts. Organizational awareness of data quality issues and concepts are beginning to emerge. Master and reference data concepts are being recognized. Level 3, defined. Emerging data management capability. Scalable data management processes are introduced and institutionalized. Data management is seen as an organizational enabler. Data is replicated across the organization with some controls in place. General increase in overall data quality. Coordinated policy definition and management, which leads to a significant reduction in manual intervention. Process outcomes are becoming more reliable. Level 4, managed, where growth in levels 1 through 3 enables the organization to predict results when approaching new projects and tasks and begin to manage risks related to data. Data management includes performance metrics, standardized tools for data management from desktop to infrastructure, well-formed centralized planning and governance function, measurable increase in data quality, organization-wide capabilities such as end-to-end data audits. Level 5, optimization. Highly predictable data management practices due to process automation and technology change management. focus on continuous improvement. Tools enable a view of data across processes. Proliferation of data is controlled to prevent needless duplicates. And well understood metrics are used to manage and measure data quality and processes. Different processes have different assessment criteria that must be met for a process to reach a certain capability level. At any level, assessment criteria will be evaluated along a scale, such as 1. Not started, 2. In process, 3. Functional, and 4. Effective. Showing process within that level and movement towards the next level. Criteria could be formulated based on the following categories: activity, tools, standards, people, and resources. The categories are based on the Data Management Book of Knowledge context diagram, which we will talk about in another lecture. We will now take a closer look at these categories, starting with activity. So some questions that could be asked are: to what degree is the activity or progress in place? Are criteria defined for effective and efficient execution? How well defined and executed is the activity? And are best practice outputs produced? Questions to the tool category include: to what degree is the activity automated and supported by a common set of tools? Is tool training provided within specific roles and responsibilities? Are tools available when and where needed? Are they configured optimally to provide the most effective and efficient results? And to what extent is long-term technology planning in place to accommodate future state capabilities? Some questions for the standards category include: to what degree is the activity supported by a common set of standards? How well documented are the standards? And are standards enforced and supported by governance and change management? The people and resources category could contain the following questions: to what degree is the organization staffed to carry out the activity? What specific skills, training, and knowledge are necessary to execute the activity? And how well are the roles and responsibilities defined? The Data Management Maturity Assessment Chart is a way to visualize the findings of the assessment. And we will see an example of this on the next slide, where the outer ring shows the level of capability the organization has determined it needs to compete successfully. The inner ring shows the current capability level of the organization, and the areas where the distance is largest represents the greatest risk for the organization. And here we see an example where the blue outer ring is the desired rank of the capability level, and the inner red ring is the current rank, the current capability level of the organization, and where the distance is at its largest, that's where the greatest risks are involved in the current state of the organization. There exists a number of data management maturity frameworks. Some are more general and some have a more industry-specific focus. Most frameworks address subjects that can be mapped to the Data Management Book of knowledge areas. Organizations should evaluate several models before choosing a framework or choosing to develop their own. We will take a look at some of these frameworks here, starting with the DMMA Data Management Maturity Model. Capability Maturity Model Institute has developed a data management maturity model that provides assessment criteria for the following data management areas: data management strategy, data governance, data quality, platform and architecture, data operations, and supporting processes. The model identifies sub-processes to evaluate for each area, such as data quality strategy and data quality assessment, profiling and cleaning within the data quality section. The model also accounts for the relation between the data management areas. The Enterprise Data Management Capability Assessment Model, or EDM Council DCAM, describes 37 capabilities and 115 sub-capabilities associated with the development of a sustainable data management program. The scoring focuses on the level of stakeholder engagement, formality of process, and existence of artifacts that demonstrate the achievement of capabilities. The IBM Data Governance Council Maturity Model is organized around 4 key categories: outcomes, such as data risk management and compliance and value creation; enablers, such as organizational structure and awareness, policy and stewardship; core disciplines, such as data quality management, information lifecycle management, and information security and privacy; and supporting disciplines such as data architecture, classification and metadata, audit information, logging, and reporting. The Stanford Data Governance Maturity Model was developed for use by the Stanford University and was not intended to be an industry standard. It is, however, rather commonly used. The model focuses on data governance. It differentiates between the components of foundational, including awareness, formalization and metadata, and project, including data stewardship, data quality, and master data. And within each of these components, the model articulates drivers for people, policies, and capabilities, as well as characteristics for each level of maturity. The model provides both qualitative and quantitative measurements for each level. Now let's take a look at the activities connected to a data management maturity assessment. Performing a DMMA requires planning. Allow time within the plan for preparation of materials and evaluation of results. Keep the time allotted for the DMMA short and defined. The purpose of the evaluation is to expose current strength and opportunities for improvement, not to solve problems. The goal is to reach a consensus view of current state capabilities supported by evidence. And this evidence may come from examining artifacts, such as the existence of database backups, or through interviews, such as verifying that a certain responsibility is carried out by a certain person or team, or both. The assessment can and should be scaled to fit the needs of the organization. However, when making customizations to a model or a framework, do keep the original intent of the model intact. When planning assessment activities, start by defining the overall approach and communicate with stakeholders before and during the assessment to ensure they are engaged. And the assessment itself includes collecting and evaluating inputs and communicating results, recommendation, and action plans. The fact that a maturity assessment is being conducted means that the organization is already engaged in an effort to improve its practices. In most cases, those organizations have already identified the drivers for the assessment. These drivers must be clarified in the form of objectives that describe the focus and influence the scope of the assessment. The objectives must be understood by executives and align with the overall strategic direction of the organization. The objectives also give direction into which framework to choose, which business areas to evaluate, and who should give input. With the objectives clearly stated, review different frameworks to use. The choice of framework influences how the assessment is conducted. The team working on it should have expertise in the model and the methodology on which it depends. The following criteria should be considered when selecting a DMM framework. Accessibility, where practices convey the functional essence of the activity. Comprehensiveness, with broad scope of data management activities, not just IT processes. It should be extensible and flexible, so it can be used either in whole or in part, depending on the needs of the organization. A future progress path built in where with a logical way forward within each function. And depending on the needs of the organization, it should be industry agnostic or industry specific. Level of abstraction or detail should be sufficient to ensure criteria can be related to the organization. Non-prescriptive, so that the model describes what needs to be performed but not how to perform it. Organized by topic, data management activities should be placed in appropriate contexts. Should be repeatable, so comparisons of results can be made over time. Supported by a neutral, independent organization to avoid conflicts of interests and to ensure a broad representation of industry best practices. It should be technology neutral, so the focus can be on practices and not the tools used, and include training support to enable professionals to master the framework. Most DMMA frameworks are designed to apply to an entire enterprise. This, however, might be impractical, especially for a first evaluation. Rather, evaluation can be repeated for different parts of the organization, a so-called localized assessment. A localized assessment can go deeper into details and can be done more quickly because of the smaller scope. However, the enterprise assessment provides a focus on the broad and sometimes disconnected parts of an organization. The enterprise assessment can also be assembled from several localized assessments or be made as a separate undertaking. When defining the interaction approach, follow the recommendations for the selected model, and information gathering activities may include workshops, interviews, surveys, artifact reviews, and employ methods that suit the organizational culture and minimize time commitment from participants. Responses will need to be formalized to fit the assessment criteria. Communications is a really important part of a DMMA. The communication will be directed at participants and other stakeholders, and since finding may impact people's jobs, it is important to communicate clearly about the purpose, process, and specific expectations for individuals and groups. Ensure participants understand the assessment models as well as how the findings will be used. Before the assessment begins, stakeholders should be clearly informed about the purpose of the DMMA, how it will be conducted, what their involvement might be, the schedule of assessment activities, and determine if the plan approached is likely to be successful across the targeted business scope, including factors such as resistance or cooperation, possible internal legal concerns, and possible human resources concerns. The communication plan should include a schedule to report on findings and recommendations on all levels, including general reports and executive briefings. When performing a maturity assessment, starting by gathering information, gather appropriate inputs for the assessment based on the interaction model. At a minimum, the information will include formal ratings of assessment criteria. It may also include input from interviews, focus groups, system analysis and design documentation, data investigation or procedure manuals, policies, approval workflows, metadata repositories, and more. The participants will have different opinions, generating different ratings across assessment topics. The ratings will need to be reconciled through discussion and rationalization. The goal is to come to a consensus view about the current state, and this view should be supported by evidence. Without a consensus view of the current state, it is difficult to have a consensus view of how to improve the organization. The ratings refinement process usually works as follows. Review results against the rating method and assign a preliminary rating to each work, product, or activity. Document the supporting evidence. Review with participants to come to consensus on a final rating for each area. If appropriate, use weight modifiers based on the importance of each criterion. Document the interpretation of the rating using the model criteria statements and assessor comments. Develop visualizations to illustrate results of the assessment. Interpretation of the results consists of identifying improvement opportunities aligned with organizational strategy and recommending actions required to take advantage of these opportunities. When the assessment is complete, organizations need to plan for the target state that they aspire to achieve in data management. The assessment report should include business drivers, the overall results, ratings by topic with gaps indicated, a recommended approach to close gaps, strength of the organizations as observed, risks to progress, investments and outcomes options, governance and metrics to measure progress, resource analysis and potential future utilization, artifacts that can be used or reused within the organization. The report is an input to the enhancement of the data management program. The assessment team should prepare executive briefings that summarize findings, strength, gaps, and recommendations. The team must tailor the messages to clarify likely impacts and benefits for each executive group. The DMMA should have a direct impact on data strategy and IT governance, as well as the data management program and strategy. Recommendations from the DMMA should be actionable, describing capabilities the organization requires. The DMMA ratings can be operationalized into ongoing measures especially for activities where change is desired. If the assessment model is used for ongoing measurement, its criteria not only guide the organization to higher levels of maturity, they also keep organizational attention on improvement efforts. New projects must be influenced to adopt better practices. The roadmap should contain sequenced activities to effect improvements in specific data management functions, a timeline for implementing improvement activities, expected improvements in DMMA ratings once activities have been implemented, and oversight activities. The roadmap will give targets and pace for change within prioritized work streams and accompanied by an approach for measuring progress. Reassessments should be conducted at regular intervals. They are part of the improvement cycle. Establish a baseline rating through the first assessment. Define reassessment parameters, including organizational scope. Repeat DMM assessment as necessary on a published schedule. And track trends relative to the initial baseline. Develop recommendations based on the reassessment findings. Reassessment can also reinvigorate or refocus effort, and changes to regulatory frameworks, internal or external policies, or technology are additional reasons to reassess periodically. The tools used when performing a DMMA are the Data Management Maturity Framework, the Communication Plan, collaboration tools, and knowledge management and metadata repositories. The Data Management Maturity Framework we have discussed in some detail earlier this lecture, and it is the primary tool used in a maturity assessment. The Communication Plan is another important tool, and it includes an engagement model for stakeholders, the type of information to be shared, and the schedule for sharing information. Collaboration tools allows for findings to be shared, and also evidence of data management practices may be found in emails, completed templates, and review documents. The knowledge management and metadata repositories may manage data standards, policies, methods, agendas, meeting minutes or decisions, business and technical artifacts, and they all serve as proof of practice. Some guidelines for performing a data management maturity assessment. The readiness assessment and risk assessment is a helpful way to identify potential risks and possible risk mitigations before undertaking a maturity assessment. Establishing or enhancing a data management program includes changes to processes, methods, and tools. With these changes, culture must also change. The DMMA results should therefore be part of a larger discussion within the organization. When properly supported by effective data governance, DMMA results can result in a shared vision and accelerate an organization's progress. A DMMA is typically part of an overall set of data governance activities, each with its own life cycle. The life cycle of a DMMA consists of the initial planning and initial assessment, followed by recommendations, an action plan, and periodic re-evaluation. The life cycle itself should be governed. Metrics serve as both a core component of improvement strategies and as key communication tools. Each organization should develop metrics tailored to its target state roadmap, and sample metrics could include DMMA ratings, resource utilization rates such as every resource in the organization spends 10% of their time manually aggregating data. Risk exposure, the ability to respond to risk scenarios, and this can be expressed as the difference between the desired and current capability level. Spend management, how is the cost of data management spread across the organization? Inputs to the DMMA expresses the level of engagement throughout the organization. Rate of change, where a baseline is established through the DMMA and improvement trends are measured by periodic reassessment. The sources for this lecture was the Data Management Association Data Management Book of Knowledge, Chapter 15, Data Management Maturity Assessment. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.